Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to my little show, my little channel. Going to be continuing on with the Ghost Theater tonight. It's been a couple days. I've missed it. I'm liking this story. It's cool. It's a cool story. Like it's kind of pessimistic. Not pessimistic, or I just didn't know what to expect, but it's a fun story. I like the characters. I like how dark and mysterious it is, and the setting, and it's fun. It's been a fun read. It's nice to read something kind of fun and that takes you away to another world. So yeah, I'm going to put my banner up because, oops, I forgot to put that up, and then get started in my little story. There we go. It's up. It's up. Okay. Was there something else? I feel like there was something else. No need to rush getting started either. I can take a little bit of time. Oh, it's first day of fall. Hello, what you doing? So, yeah, I went for a little bit of an autumnal look today, I suppose. Just want to imbibe the new season. Going to be thinking about my autumnal wardrobe, what pieces I'll need to include, what will need to get put away and all of that, layers. I wore a sweater the other day when I went out. That was pretty interesting. It looked good though. Autumnal is a choice word, says Stacy. Hi, Stacy. Shout out, Stacy, you're first. Yeah. I mean, it's most people's favorite season, isn't it? There's something so lovely about it. No, you're not going outside. Stop. I'm not going to let you in the hallway. I'm not going to let you on the balcony. It's closed. Maybe tomorrow. What you doing? What are you doing? Huh? What you doing? You mad at me? You mad at me? Is you mad? Why would you be mad? It's because I won't let you outside. That's not fair. Hi. You want up here? Here we go. You want up here? Come on. Come on up. You can come up. Oh, you don't want up here. You gonna jump up from there? Come on. Come on, dude. You're acting like you don't want my lap now. When you were a moment ago standing on your tippy toes, looking at it. Yeah, that's what I thought. Get up here. Acting like you don't want to come up here. He was acting like he wasn't going to come up here, y'all. Does anyone else have cats that do stuff like that with them? He's like, oh, I'm going to pretend I don't want to go up there for a minute. But really, all the time, he was hyping himself up to jump up here. That's right. I know my kitty. I know your ways. Are we under our nice little light? And she's going to be reading, making all that noise for some reason. Hi, Josh Musics. Welcome to the chat. And hi, Bond. Good to see you both. Got 3 chatters already, and we've only just begun. All right. Howdy. Howdy. Howdy, Bond. Tomorrow. Ow, 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 ow. Hey. Yeah, that hurts when you do that. Hey. Wonderful to see me live. Thank you. Yeah, it's always nice to get a chance to interact. Yeah. You was just hurting my bones there, honey. It's nothing like that. Yeah, you get comfy. There we go. Okay, shall I get started? I think I'm going to get started with my little reading. So this is chapter 30 we're on. How's the sound, everyone? Is it good? Should I pull the microphone closer? I was kind of wondering about that a moment ago. I think I'm going to, just because I'm sat in a bit different position today. So I think that'll be for the best. Yeah, it's a bit closer there. And then I've got to contend with this. Okay, a bit better. All right. Those who move to London from elsewhere cling tightest to the city, and the further afield they come from, the fiercer the attraction. Devana had been hatched on some bleak Arctic tundra, and she was now the most committed of Londoners. So Shay's heart sang at the sight of the bird's silhouette, hanging above the boat, shadowing her path out towards birdland. Devana glided disdainfully high, as if keeping the city safe within view, and Shay willed her to descend, desperate for some companionship on this trip. If she'd known that Devana might follow her beyond the city walls, then she would have brought meat. Instead, she chirruped and called to guide the bird down. Circuits of long, low ellipses until she materialized on the prow of the rowing boat, examining the river with distaste. "I don't have anything for you, girl," she said. "Just me." Devana stretched her wings against the breeze and went back to staring murderously at the water. Something in the wavelets was spooking her prey senses. She risked a glance at those night sky eyes. "None such is performing for Lord Mapesbury tonight, girl." She stressed the name as if Devana might recognize it. Lord knows everyone else did. Boys crossed themselves at his very mention, and even Evans was grim-faced if he came up in conversation. When Shay had finally admitted to Alouette that she'd spied on the private mask, her only response had been, "At least it wasn't one of Mapesbury's." "Yes, he's performing tonight, and tomorrow we'll have £10. Oh, so her boyfriend's turning a trick here. Isn't that nice? No to the claws. Stop digging your claws in. That's not friendly. That's too friendly. That hurts. I'm sensitive. You scratch up my skin when you do that. Yeah. You don't want to scratch me up, do you? No. Hi, Golden Rule TV. Thank you. Don't connect those two things, she told herself. Was it better to know that what none such would have to do or not? The question was moot, really. He had been silent as he prepared in the crow's nest, lost somewhere behind his eyes as Blank measured and dressed and painted him. Just the three of them knew where he was going, and it was the only way to keep the feed from disappearing into other people's pockets. Once he was dressed and gone, Shay and Blank watched none such from their eyrie. We read that word before. Hi, Nana. Good to see you. Hi. Stop. Stop. What you doing? Okay. A small figure disappearing into the maw of the carriage turned side on to protect his glistening wings, but not looking back. Then Blank set about getting dead drunk, drinking with some kind of dedicated desperation until he passed out on a pile of costumes. It would be better to know, she decided. Anything would be preferable to the images that appeared when she closed her eyes, blood and teeth and huge hands on slender wrists. Jesus, he's getting awful with this. She was a child afraid of the dark, and every shadow became a monster. She turned her mind back to Devana. You're never usually out this late, she said, and it's too dark to hunt anyway. Will you wait on the boat while I deliver these? She held up the bag, and Devana watched it side on. No meat, sorry, just sweet things. Vast snowbanks of clouds scattered the moonlight above her. The birdland torches were all gone, rotted to stumps in places, but the ground was firm. She saw no signs of guards, and barely a house had a light on. Still, she circled the long way around just in case. Their house had been lowered to the floor. That must mean that Lonan couldn't manage the climb anymore. 10 small rungs. She closed her eyes against a memory of him carrying her up them, one-handed on the ladder, swinging her, then pretending to drop her. And just as her stomach lurched, catching her by the wrist. He was so thin, his hair wild like frosted grass. She had gifts in places where she thought he would find them, but visitors to the room might not. A dried apricot tucked in his shoe, a tiny jade dove under his meat knife, coins in every crack, candies in every crevice. Back on the boat, she told Devana, incurious on the prowl, he won't know that they're from me, but he will know that someone is thinking of him every single day. Yeah, thank you, Lupin. I was on my phone and it died. So I didn't get, yeah, I'm sorry I cut out. But thank you for having me on. A strand of hair lay across his face, and as she brushed it behind his ear, he stirred. Eyes closed, he shook his head 3 times. No, 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 and then reached out a hand. She took it in hers, fragile as twigs. Let him think she was Ava. What did she care? She stroked a recalcitrant tuft of hair, and he shook his head again. She dredged her mother's voice up from the depths. Shh. Now, darling, back to sleep. Is that how they spoke to each other, adults? He relaxed, opened blank eyes that searched for something, and then lay back. Thank you, Mother, he whispered, and in moments he was asleep again. Devana had found her way into the nets while Shay was saying goodbye. She was waiting again on the prow, but now feathers fluttered in her beak, blood on her talons, and a whole perfect white wing lying torn off at her feet. Oh, girl, Shay sighed. Red blood, white flesh, the snap of bone and sinew. None such. Hello, modern gentlemen. Good to see you. Okay, so that was Act 2. We're now upon Act 3 of the Ghost Theater. Act 3, how exciting. My lap is not as good tonight because I'm in my different chair. It's not as good, is it? Yeah. I'm sorry, Shug. You're going to have to get off of Mama now for a minute. You can come back in a little bit, but you're going to have to get off me now. Come on. You're sliding off, and I don't want you to dig your claws into me. Thank you. Okay. Let me get adjusted myself. Yeah, so he was in my lap, but just move my chair here. There we go. I need to get a little bit more better aligned. Yeah, the way I was sitting was not good. Okay. I was thinking about my posture today, and it's appalling sometimes. I really do need to work on it. So, and there's something fun about sitting all like, oddly, but it does have an effect over time on the strength of one's core. So yeah, I need to work on that. I need a nice armchair and side table for reading. I do have a nice armchair. I don't know, maybe I could set that up over here, make this like the armchair spot. I haven't thought about that. Maybe that would be more comfortable for filming. I'd have to adjust some things a little bit, but it might be a nicer look. My little warm, cozy corner with my armchair. Much nicer than getting into my my office chair. The thing is, when I'm in that chair though, I have a lot less freedom and mobility. I was thinking that tonight, like I didn't want to get into the other chair because this one is more like I can move around quicker in it. So I don't know, there's trade-offs with certain things, but that would be cute. Yeah, I should make it a bit more relaxing. It's not a bad idea. And I do like these reading streams. I want to continue them, if only for my own selfishness, getting through books, Because honestly, like, my reading's gone down in years. Like, I don't read like I used to, which is amazing to me. I used to devour literature. I read so much. But I think too, my lifestyle was a bit different, and I had to I lived in the city, but I had to commute in the morning, so I had all this time to read. It's like I had half an hour to and from work where I just didn't have anything else to do. I kind of miss that about going into work, but the trade-off is not good, because then everything else suffers so much. But anyway, yeah, as a kid, I read a ton. I had so much free time then. I'm glad I did so much reading then too, because it sets you up for life to enjoy reading. Exactly, Modern Gentleman. Yeah, and that's cool. It's not for everyone, these streams, but it's nice to be, exposed to literature, reading different things. You devour literature, I devour music. I love music. I'm a music nerd. I'm very particular about my tastes and preferences, which you are too. I love music. Okay. It's one of my pastimes to go to concerts. I make a habit of it, or not a habit, but I try to prioritize that. You're devouring a Trader Joe's salad. How nice. What's in it? I got a bunch of salad stuff actually this last grocery run. I better get on it and make the salad. I got this new vegetable chopper thing. That's this device that makes just, slicing vegetables really quick. So, I got a bunch of vegetables to make some salads with. So I think I better do that tomorrow. Maybe tonight, if I still have stamina after the stream, that might be good. Make some salad. TJ's honey yogurt is heaven. I haven't had it. I haven't been to a Trader Joe's in forever. It's one of those places that, I could go out of my way to go to, but it's just not convenient. And there's the other thing about it. You end up doing a lot of impulse shopping, I find there, because I'm like, oh, that sounds good to eat. Oh, that sounds good to eat. It's more of a place I go to delighted, not like build my entire, I don't know. It's not like a staple place, I feel. I don't know if that makes sense. I feel it's like more like a treat and luxury item place. That sounds so silly. I mean, if it were nearby me, it would be my staple place. It's just not like I just have other options closer. So anyway, maybe I should happen upon one soon or go out to the ones I know about. I don't know. Or not. Okay, let's get back into the book, right? I'm getting some texts. Hold up. Oh dear. Okay. So, back when the Blackfriars boys were playing Lucifer in Limehouse, there was a scene that Shay loved. None such as Lucifer wrapped his cloak around a flower girl, a bird under his wing, and in an instant she disappeared. Shay knew it was a stage trick. Indeed, she had helped prepare the trap door, but still the dark grace of it gave her chills. And now London vanished in the same way. One moment they were rattling through the outskirts with the whole troop hysterical from the constant motion and the hilarious peasants, and then without warning the forest wrapped its cloak around the carts and something opened up beneath them. If Shay had ever imagined the deep woods before, she would have pictured them as fresh and green ripe with life. But now she discovered that they were a realm of death and rot. The horses' hooves stirred a mulch of black leaves and dead insects and rotten logs that crumbled like embers. What did live there was pale and eyeless, worms writhing towards some hidden home, and sickly mushrooms. Worst of all, no birds. They appeared even more suspicious of this skyless realm than Shay. Time slowed in that mud-thick air, and it made her breathe more shallowly, fearful of invisible tendrils coiling themselves down through her lungs, dissolving into her blood and then sprouting from her city-strained fingertips. If you took 10 steps off the path, you'd be lost forever, said Nonsuch, pulling his hood over his head. For those first weeks, they were a roaming Blackfriars theater with prop carts and tailors and pretty boys with only a couple of lines in a whole play. They played in petty, one-dimensional towns that Southwark would have swallowed whole. When the town gates opened, you could see all the way down the main streets to the back wall. Hello, Zenny. Why'd you have to call out Golden Rule TV like that? Goodness. Any non-mods want to say hi? So that he's not alone. Oh my goodness. The taverns combined city prices with country food, and the crowds wanted to see last season's London shows and then complained that they weren't as shocking as they'd been promised. The audiences were creakingly old, too. They grumbled and fidgeted and pissed where they stood. The occasional well-born daughter would be allowed to watch, flanked tightly by her parents, as she fumed in some approximation of last year's Venice fashions. The whores, according to the older boys, charged for what you could get for free in London and drew the line at anything worth paying for. Well, good for them. Okay, so these whores aren't going too far. Anyways. One joy broke the boredom, though. On a South Coast ride, they had open farmland where the tracks were little more than flattened grass, and Shay saw prey birds gather. They used the carts the way hunters used beaters to flush prey out into the open. The cart wheels flundered, and Shay saw a bird high above peel off, tuck it in its wings, and fall. It was down in a finger click, and it took a vole one clawed, snap, and it was away in a single propulsive arch of wings. And then the falcon casually tossed the prey out in front of it, even at a distance. Shay saw the creature's writhing, its final convulsive seconds in the strange airborne world before the beak came down like a curtain and the drama was done. She knew that bird. It was Divana. Her homesickness vanished. Divana was London to her, its style and violence, and all the time the bird watched over her. Shay felt as carelessly safe as she had in her childhood bed. Isn't this sweet? This falcon has followed her. It saw her leave and it chose to follow her. Oh, the chat is funny right now. Zenny is funny. Yeah, is Maina still here? She doesn't like this book. She calls it names. But she might be here just for chat. I don't know. You like to make me laugh. Thank you. I like to laugh. It's, it's good that we have this. No, don't say that, Zenny. I'm loving this book. It's so sweet. These sweet teenagers and their bizarre romance and their cruel, oppressive lives and the birds and the theater. Oh, Argalunas is like, okay, I can go now. I got the laugh. You didn't get the laugh. Zenny got the laugh. It is a bit liberal and degenerate. I mean, you are right about that. You are I will say that there is a lot of liberal degenerateness in it, but I'm trying to just like pull out the things about the story that are, to me touching and sweet, and minimize the debauchery. I mean, and it's part of life. These things do go on in that time and in this, and things don't really change. People don't really change. It's just the same people dropped in different times. Well, anyway, let me continue my gay book, as Modern Gentleman has called it. Terri loves her liberal, degenerate books. It's her guilty pleasure. I understand. I'm going to think about that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what does Matt Osman think? I don't know anything about his politics. I mean, he's a musician, so, they do tend towards liberalism, people who work in the arts. It just is, but I don't know, I haven't really heard, not everybody, obviously, but they may, anyway. You like chill stream better than book reads. Okay. But I'm glad you're here for both, Stacy. You like my chill streams? I think I don't know about them. I sometimes look at them. I'm like, oh, what am I doing with my chill streams? You like me reacting to videos? Maybe I should do it better. Maybe I should be more like prepared or something. I'm not playing the plantation. I don't game much. I'm not a gamer. I mean, Well, don't these readings take on a life of their own? Like right now, we're in an interim point between, me coming off and either talking about what we read or like reacting to the chat. Like, but then we get grounded and we come back to, I should take more requests. Indeed, I will not. Trying to have me play all these kids on my channel. That's a good idea, Zenny. I could clip my own content and then put the like advertising on that. Bada bing, bada boom. Then I could, retire in the south of France finally. Oh, well. That's not bad. I was thinking about clipping some of my stuff. Thank you. That's a good suggestion. Money just brings problems. I'd rather have no money problems, though, than no money problems. Okay. Golden Rule TV. I'm just saying, like... Oh, hi, Chris. He says, hi, guys. Hi, Terry. Night, guys. Night, Terry. It's late where Chris is. He should really be in bed. I was thinking about that too, Stacy. I was thinking I should do that. I should just watch some of my old videos and react to them. It'd be fun to watch me cringe at myself, wouldn't it? Well, Zenny, I don't think that's exactly what they were saying. But I definitely don't think I will. John's call was great today. But yeah, I definitely don't think that. I mean, different people have different temptations, though. What's a temptation to someone like him isn't going to be what's, tempting to me. And yeah, it does. There's truth in that. There's truth in what people say about money corrupting people, but honestly, it's not the money that's corrupting them. You've watched a few of my old videos. How old? Chris just got back from all the other videos and channels he's had to mod. It's been a busy day for Chris. He's tired. Okay, let's see. Let's get back to the book. That night, before they made camp, Shay bought a rabbit from a passing poacher. It cost a day's profit, but there was nothing else to spend it on out here. She staked the body on the roof of the cart, and when she woke in the morning, it was gone. Aw, she bought Devonna a rabbit. How nice. Dover, Winchester, Bath. In and out like locusts for one performance per town. After that, the place was sucked dry, and they wouldn't be able to return. Days of rain and nights of stars as the shows got smaller and the taverns got worse. Once they'd exhausted the bigger towns, the troupe began to shed its Blackfriars skin. They left useless props and moldering costumes by the roadside, sold the carts, sold the swords. Boys seeped away too, lost to uncomplicated country girls and farm work, gone like ghosts. The only sign they'd been there, a pair of boots by a rooming house door or one horse unsaddled in the stables. Soon they became the ghost theater again, all in but name. Shay, none such, Alouette, Blank, Trussell, and a couple of the more determinedly urban boys who huddled at the dead center of their campsites and asked every day for news of the plague's retreat. This is so interesting, and I wonder if like he was inspired by the pandemic to write this book as well. The COVID times. I don't even super chat. Oh, you're talking to some of the chat. Okay. Indeed, Zenny. Indeed. But again, it's every day, it's a spiritual battle, against the devil. So, it's just, yeah, I think there's more to corruption than just his money. There's plenty of people out here making money who are wise and prudent and who, use it to be a positive force in the world. And I think that's what we should strive to do as well. I don't go in for that kind of like talk about money corrupting. It's like, it's not the thing that corrupts. There's plenty of people who have no money who are way more corrupt than people that have it, I've seen that anyway. I don't know about y'all. So I don't think that there's anything really about the presence of it or the lack of it that causes people to be, evil. And honestly, I mean, like, in order to, some people are born into wealth, but in order to maintain wealth and to build wealth, you kind of have to be doing something of service that other people value, So, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sipping. I didn't want to be drinking it directly. I like using a straw sometimes, What's lovely, Samuel? Hi, Irish Repub and Samuel. They've joined the chat now. Well, let me continue. None such wrote, rehearsed and discarded whole plays while lolling on horseback, love scenes in the saddle and one-handed sword fights. Not that they needed new plays. Most nights he veered from the scripts the moment he was bored, and in the country he was always bored. He started what was supposed to be a version of Abelard and Eloise with the words, "Yesterday I awoke to discover I had become a bird," with these words. Oh, I'm sorry, I just read that. Yesterday I awoke to discover I had become a bird. In these moods, only Trussell would try to keep up with him, and none such dragged him through the labyrinth two-handers with tails growing taller and taller. The crowd roared at their bird impressions and nonsense stories. In a muddy village on the road to Oswestry, where's that? You said thine countenance. Hey, thank you. That's nice. That's nice. I like the word countenance. When a woman has a lovely countenance, yeah, that's nice. That's a nice compliment. Okay, I need to get back to my story. Oswestry. Where is Oswestry? Has anyone heard of this place? Is my phone, it died earlier. I'm not somebody who generally lets that happen, but let's see. Oh, it's not even charging. What the heck? Oh, now it's charging. Okay, looking up oswestry. It's a market town, an historic railway town in Shropshire, close to the Welsh border. Okay. It's at the junction of the A5, A483, and A490 495 roads, I should say. Okay, wow, it looks like a very cute place. Some very old buildings. Oswestry, I've never heard of it. So it's in the West Midlands. Okay. Okay, close to Wales. Interesting. Yeah, definitely Irish Repub. Definitely. There are some interesting, yeah, differences in the places. Or just influences over time. Well, anyway. Okay. Okay, so in a muddy village on the road to Oswestry, none such extemporized a whole play out of thin air. Two pairs of lovers were transformed by love potions. Shay and Trestle and Blank and Elouette were coupled and parted, entwined and divided in every conceivable pairing. Dandelion seeds in their hair, grass stains on their knees. Shay was washed away by the drama's liquid logic, and the words moved her like a chess piece, from body to body and mouth to mouth. Trestle's tongue in her ear and Alouette's hand on her breast. Afterwards, she and Nonesuch lay alone in their tent as if it happened to someone else. Weird. I don't like that. Like, was this an actual play or is he describing something that happened? I'm a little grossed out, to be honest. Whatever. Wild as birds, the troupe crisscrossed in England alive with rumors. They weren't the only wanderers, it seemed. The signs of Elizabeth's black swifts were everywhere. Gibbets so fresh that their wood was still green and sappy hung with corpses that flapped like flags under the onslaught of crows. Ooh, and there were other, less explicable traces too. Twice they came across burning enclosures where smoldering fences cast a battleground pall for miles. The second was crowned with a tattered banner that read, "No masters, no fences, no rest." Oh my. They'd be privatizing the commons. Mm-mm. You're batting down the hatches for a hurricane in a couple of days. Oh my, a hurricane. Are they rather exciting to live through? I've never really, yeah, experienced one. It's like a horror book. It is a bit, there is a bit of that in it. It hasn't gotten too graphic, but what does it mean? Shay asked everyone, but the boys had no idea, and the locals scuttled away at the question. The burning places scared Shay. She proudly learnt London's code and knew in her bones where was safe and where was dangerous, where she would be invisible and where she stood out, and where a girl, however well disguised, should never walk alone. But here danger struck as randomly as lightning. England's interior was wild, landmarkless place. It was a wild, landmarkless place, as arbitrary as the marshes, and liable to burst into flame without warning. Summer slouched into autumn. Dead skies opened up above them, and the tips of things turned brown like burnt paper. Birds prepared for the winter assiduously, making Shay fret about the weeks to come. Divana followed often but visited rarely. She flitted in on wings of snow with her beak blood black in the moonlight, and Shay took pitiful offerings with a sniff. And took Shay's pitiful offerings with a sniff. I'm sorry. They climbed the ladder of England, mimicking winter's slow arrival as the land turned gray and bare and hard. The towns were now on no map and had no name. Hamlets, villages, encampments. Now the company acted without props or staging. A length of rope was enough to divide actors and audience. Swords were cardboard and crowns were fashioned from leaves. Everything was conveyed by the body. Here they loved Trestle's pratfalls, both inadvertent and deliberate. They watched none such in a day's silence, and Shay could never tell whether it was bespoke scorn or awe. Hello, Tomas. And hello to Point Fire. You love Tomas's Count Dracula entrance. Good evening. Oh, Tomas. Okay, let's see. Where was I? Brecknock was nothing more than a ring of houses that cowered from the surrounding forest, where the troupe ate acorn stew for dinner and shoed sheep from their stage to be. None such awake before showtime for once spent an hour with the village children, and Shay watched him squat and chat and ruffle hair. Once he was done, the children left in twos and threes, whispering happily to each other. She knew better than to ask what he was planning, but something was afoot. With only minutes to go until showtime, he pulled her aside. Do you know every lost lamb? He asked. She nodded. A lullaby, everyone knew it. What's my cue? She asked. You'll know when. No costume or props. None such squatted on the wet grass and said, I lived near here once, maybe 5 miles away. I can't remember the village's name. It may have been too poor to have one. Someone in the front row laughed. I didn't live there for long, 3 months maybe. Enough to yearn for the excitement of Brecknock anyway. More laughter. My father was a sin-eater, he said. And a man near the back crossed himself, but times were slow. There weren't enough sinners dying in Brecknock. My childhood hunger was your fault. You Welsh are too clean living to keep a sin-eater in the manner to which he'd become accustomed. If only he was a London sin-eater. I used to think then his belly would be full of murders and mine would be full of meat. He got another easy laugh for that. So no sins, and of course we had no land, so we foraged. Noises of sympathy came from the crowd. One day we were picking mushrooms. Well, I was picking mushrooms. My parents lasted about a quarter hour before the tavern called. The best spots had already been picked clean because my parents weren't ones for early starts. So I had to go a little deeper into the forest. He leaned inward. You all know how it swallows you up out there. Even 10 yards from the edge of the forest, you're in another world, like Jonah and the whale. Mushrooms prefer the damp and the dark. So that's where I started, looking for the black and sodden places, anywhere that you would usually avoid. I was just a little boy, you know. And those cloth shoes with no heels that get wet through in a minute. But I had a good sense for where you might find mushrooms. It was a kind of gift. His voice thinned. Dappled light on wet leaves, the smell of rot and the drip of water. Listen and look, and there they would be. And as he talked, his hands made shapes in the air. Shay was there. She saw ragged white phalluses pushing aside the carpet of leaves. Ragged white phalluses. What is wrong with mats? What's wrong with the mats? What? I picked hundreds. My basket was so full that I needed both hands to carry it. His voice now boyishly high, spiced with a pinch of pride. And then, of course, I looked up and I was lost. Hours had passed and I was deep in the forest, all alone. A child in the crowd gasped, and the vision in Shay's mind darkened. Now the treetops rose into a night sky, and the undergrowth crowded around her. No air and no birds. At first, I tried to retrace my steps, but God knows where I'd come from. I shouted and cried. He crossed his hands over his chest now, like a child in his bed. I knew that the sensible thing to do was wait, but his voice was tiny now. I didn't think anyone would come to look for me. Involuntarily, Shay looked up to see if Devana was there. None such said, so I walked in a straight line as I could manage. He raised his hand into the air as a signpost, straight as an arrow and everything rotting and crumbling beneath my feet. The girl in the front row said, "So what happened?" He took her hand. "Oh, they came and found me eventually. I wasn't even that far from the village." He gave her hand a squeeze. "Even then, I was 6, maybe 7. I was so surprised that they bothered looking for me." His laugh was a harsh punctuation. They probably needed the basket back. When he started talking again, it was in a voice that Shay hadn't heard from him before. It was flat and featureless, a fen of a voice. I sometimes think that boy is still walking beneath those ancient trees. In the moments before sleep, or straight after a show, or in the back of a boat, I see him, deep in the forest and deeper with every step. But this time, no one is coming to get him. He cleared his mouth and started to sing. I don't know this. Is anyone familiar with this Every Lost Lamb lullaby? It was never sang to me. I'm not familiar with it. Every lost lamb will find a path. Shay joined in on the second line, an octave up with some space between them. It was one of those shallow melodies that rose and fell in easy intervals, worn like the dip in old stairs. Their voices followed each other but never met. She saw the pair of them running across the rooftops on that first day. Then a cry went up from the crowd. The children of the village stepped out of the forest from every direction, each with a basket of mushrooms, each singing. At first, their songs were separate in different keys and different rhythms. But as the circle tightened, they came together into one voice, one joyous voice, singing Every Lost Lamb until they collapsed, proud and giggling, onto the stage. They smothered none such under a mountain of laughter, and the song faded to rags. And then all Shay could hear was the noise of that hat jangling with coin after coin after coin. That evening in the tent, Shay straddled and pinned him. How much of that was true? Did you really live near here? He tried to push her off and failed. His face was a blank piece of paper. I don't know, probably. It all looks the same here. She couldn't see his eyes in the dark. Her hands gripped his wrists, her lips on his brow. She said, "If you are ever lost again, I will find you. I will search, and I will never stop looking for you." Dang. She loves her none such, doesn't she? Isn't that sweet? Oh, she loves him. I like mushrooms on cheeseburgers too. They're good. I like mushrooms in general. Mushrooms are a favorite. They're kind of a staple. Like I think of all the yeah, mushrooms are like always in rotation in my house. I don't know. I love them. I love to add them to things. They just add texture and life and oh, they're good. I love them. Yeah, I like them. I used to like picking mushrooms too. I don't know, they're fascinating creatures as well, just fungus. Mm. We know you love mushrooms. Not those kind. No, indeed. I do not, Maina. No. I will not. No. No. And I don't think people should do that. Okay, let's continue. I don't know. I'm so touched by this, though. I'm so touched. She's like, if you're ever lost again, I will find you. Oh. The next day, they'd lost the Blackfriars boy. Pavey had met a girl in Hereford and then pined all the way through Wales. So none of them were surprised to wake to find one tent with its sides open and a note fluttering on at the front. Pavey could read well enough, but he couldn't write, so he pinned a battered page from a script to the canvas. It read, Jezebel exits stage right, night falls. So they were 5 again. Alouette, Blank, Nonsuch, Shea, and Trestle. The Ghost Theater on horseback. That day they rode for hours without seeing a soul, but fresh signs of devastation preceded them everywhere they went. The roads were fringed with blackened, smoldering stumps where mile upon mile of hawthorn hedge had been set alight. Shea's arms ached from holding the reins tight. The horses shied at the smoke and the crackling of embers. At a bleak country crossroads, a teetering bonfire churned with smoke and turned the sky to dusk. The troop rode warily past smoking fence posts that were piled head high. In the valley beyond, livestock that had been set free and a herd of cows sat unmoving across the road until Alouette scared them off with a firecracker. They came to a village green that had been scythed as short as a beard. Smoke rose from the east. The 5 sprawled around a cookpot with just wood pigeon calls and river burble to break their various silences. It was enough, though, thought Shea. It was more than enough. She lay in Alouette's lap and let her braid dandelions into her hair, squish of nails like a cat grooming. You know that gibbet we passed a couple of miles back? Do you think we could drag it here? A low moan came from the others. This was one of Nonsuch's ideas, only Alouette took the bait. I don't see why not. Borrow an ox cart. She meant to tip it on its side. The lane was fairly wide. What's the plan? Nonsuch stood. Me, center stage. What a surprise, whispered Trestle. With my neck in a noose, he mimed it, cocking his head to one side, a hangman next to me. Trestle raised a hand. Respectfully, I'd very much like to volunteer for that role. He brushed grass from his hair and put on a country accent. Less mouth, more neck, sonny. Nonsuch waved him away. It's got to look realistic, so I'd rather not have the clumsiest man I know holding the other end of the rope. Alouette can do it. He wheeled around facing Trestle like a boxer. I've been arrested for sedition, said Blank. Sumptuary, suggested Alouette. Sodomy, said Trestle. Oh my. Nonsuch rolled his eyes. Stealing cattle, said Shea. Stealing cattle, thank you, Shea. He blew her a kiss. Blank propped himself up on his elbows. I see it. The audience is a jury. Yes, yes. Nonsuch was almost dancing now. Trestle circled him, saying, I produce evidence. Witnesses, bloodstains, cuts of meat. None such raised an invisible sword. I Perry, my good name, my unblemished character. They all scoffed at that. Alouette said, I'll be a local. That way I can sow doubt. There have been thieves in the area. Strange tribes are afoot. Trussell raised his hands. I tightened the noose, just enough breath for one last speech. None such bowed, in which I plead my innocence for the final time. I beg and entreat, even through the tightening rope. When I convince them of my innocence, the audience carry me out on their shoulders. Only if you convince, said Trussell. What if I win? He watched Nonesuch dance around the fire. Nonesuch threw himself back onto the ground. Trussell, the day I can't sway a crowd of ignorant peasants is the day you can hang me for real. I didn't make a deal to do, or I didn't make a word. I didn't say that I would do Art of the Deal, although I'm considering it. I think it would be fun. I'd like to do it. So, we may. It's a possibility. Hi, Jeff Riggins. Okay. Whew, excuse me. The silence rushed back to cover them. Shay dozed. Alouette read. Trussell drew. It was Nonesuch who broke the spell again. Where is everyone? It was already past 4 bells, and usually by now village children would be milling around, but there was no sound bar the birds. Nonesuch took Trussell's pencil from him and gave him a handful of coins. Go into the village, buy an ale or two, and show off the quality of your costume. Tell them that the sparrow will be singing as well. Shay hid a smile. The further they rode from London, the more of a draw she became. North of Oxford, the audiences didn't care about the plays that had made the Blackfriars boy's name such a soothsaying half-girl, half-bird was worth a penny or two. Nonesuch had resisted at first. She hadn't even been mentioned on the original playbills, but as the weather churned and the trees thinned, her name appeared, then rose, and then topped the page. Sparrow, that's Sparrow. She advises the queen. That's what she heard when she climbed on stage. But she was content to play the parts Nonesuch created for her and be gawped at. Only now did she realize how much the weeks of fortune-telling had drained her. Now she sang only when she wanted, and the trances felt more gift than burden. An hour of nothing, and then Trussell was back, wet-mouthed and smelling of ale. He said, they've all gone to Cockaigne? What? Is it Cockaigne? What is this place? Another place I've never heard of in England. Oh, Tomas. Why are you being... You love it here, don't you? Don't you love America and Americans? Is that how it's pronounced? I don't know. I'm not sure I want to... It's a land of plenty and medieval myth, an imaginary place of luxury and ease, comfort and pleasure, opposite to the harshness of medieval peasant life. Oh, so it's not even a real place. How do I say it, though?
Cockaigne.
Okay, thanks, Internet. Cockaigne, it's in it. Okay, so he's saying that They've all gone to Cockaigne. The magical city of Cockaigne? The icing of scorn on Nonsuch's voice was the one that he reserved for the most rural of beliefs. It's supposed to be in Europe somewhere, isn't it? If there really were a city of endless treasure on the outskirts of Overton, then I think we might have heard of it. He stared around as if daring the city to materialize in front of them. Trussell sighed. Obviously, I know it's a myth, but I'm just telling you what they told me. Cockaigne rises for one night only. He put on his yokel accent again. I'd rather see a city of wonders than a bunch of Londoners in dresses. He scratched himself. Anyway, they're not coming. Not a single one of them. Cockaigne. Shay had heard the name, but no picture came to mind. Alouette would know, though. The shows out here in the sticks had no need for props, and Alouette was relegated to a supporting player. She spent her days collecting specimens, poisonous mushrooms that would kill in less time than it took to draw breath, herbs to stoke ardor or to quell it, animal blood that made the drinker invincible. In Bury, she found a source of Dee's foxfire, those glowing mushrooms that grew on rotting wood. Now when she rode, her saddlebags clinked with the bottles of the luminous liquid that she painstakingly distilled over campfires every night. Alouette is a nerd. This girl is nerdy. Like, I love her, honestly. She's like making little potions and whatnot over campfire as they travel across the country on horseback. My goodness. Terry's, that wasn't Alexa. That was a YouTube video I was watching. I don't have that stuff set up, actually. I don't like it. I don't like when people talk to Siri. I don't want to talk to Siri or whoever, or Alexa or whoever. I mean, I have an iPhone, so it would be Siri, right? Or can I have Alexa too? I don't know how it works. Ugh, someone's vehicle alarm is going off. How irritating. You chatted with a Belgian. Good choice, Terry. That's smart. It just seems weird. Like, I don't know. I don't need that. I don't want it. Like, all of the things that, I don't know, people seem to dig about it. I don't get it. She says she's been to Holland many times. I mean, if I were Belgian, I'd probably be going to Holland many times too. It's not that far. Terry knows about Big Brother, I suppose. It's just weird. I don't know. It's weird technology. Like, it's too much. I mean, I'm not completely opposed to, like, having certain things. I don't know. I should travel if I can. Of course I should. Traveling is more difficult for me now than it used to be. So, but I don't intend ever to give it up. There's more places I want to go, of course. And I have seen some interesting places in my life, Alas. Where will I go next? Who knows? We'll see. Shay found, okay, wait, hold on. Where was I? In Hertfordshire, the troop had come across the remnants of a massacre. Men's skeletons lay where they'd fallen, not long stripped of flesh by the crows. Most of the players averted their eyes, but Alouette dived in, scraping any shred of moss that had grown on the skulls. It cost her a crown, an enormous sum, to send the skull moss back to Dr. D by horse messenger. But 3 days later, a rider appeared with 2 guineas and a sealed letter for her. Shay found her lying on her bedroll, surrounded by jars and boxes. She scowled when she heard what Shay had come to ask. Cockaigne? It's a children's story. Hang on. She took a book from the chest and read, In the city of Cockaigne, roast pigs carve slices from their own backs for you to eat, and grilled rabbits leap happily into your mouth. The rivers are made of wine, the sun always shines, and lakes are... She snapped the book closed. Always open. Shay laughed. Well, get your best dress on. We're visiting it tonight. You could see it from miles away. High golden walls shimmered in the night air as the troop grew closer. The glimmer resolved into a shape of a fiery castle. It rose from the hilltop, haloed with blazing torches that threw the surrounding fields into darkness. A relentless 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 drumbeat drew a stream of villagers up a torchlit path. The troop mixed in with the throng, swept up by the carnival atmosphere. The queue ran hundreds of yards down the slope, a slap in the face after the ghost theater's thinning audiences. Nonsuch squinted at the end of the line, far enough down the hill that the lights of Cockaigne hardly reached it. Fuck this for a game of soldiers. Come on. He set his face at its most contemptuous. At the entrance, 2 sweating drummers, stripped to the waist, worked feverishly as lads took pennies from the newcomers. Nonsuch walked past them and made for a figure in the shadows. The man was tall, maybe 6 foot, in the muddy hose and shirt that would have shamed a farmer. But he wore silver at his ears and neck, great shining lumps of it. Nonsuch said, We're the Ghost Theatre, touring from London. We thought we'd take a look at your show. The man moved his stool around to the light and said nothing. I'm Lord Nonsuch. He held out a hand and the man engulfed it in his own, dirt under his nails, dirt in the creases. A slow voice, riverine. Jagger, the Jagger. It's quite a stage set you have here. Do you erect it every night? The man sighed. There's a queue. I'm aware of that. I was hoping that as a fellow showman from London, he considered it and then called over to the lads on the gate. These 5, charge them double. He looked back at Nonsuch. And there's still a queue. Nonsuch's hand went to his blade, and Shay was ready to pull him back, but Trussell stepped between them. He said, We have the sparrow with us, too. The Jagger tilted his head and pulled a torch from the wall. Shay drew back from its heat as he examined her. So the rumors are true. People have been asking after you, offering money, saying the queen would like you back in your nest. He brought the torch closer. You really a flapper, girl? Or maybe you take country folk for half-wits? She removed her cap and rifled her hand through her hair to show hints of her tattoo, and the Jagger laughed. All right then, you 4 can go in for free right now. His lordship still pays double. He executed a mock bow to Nonsuch and then retreated back into the shadows. Oh, poor Nonsuch. Well, Zenny's free to go live. This doesn't interest him. He doesn't want to hear this story. I'm sure he has things he'd much rather do. It's fine if he wants to go live. If you want to go visit Zenny and not hear this story, that's cool. He's probably doing something more action-oriented anyway. Oh, Tomas, please, I'm reading it. You're against the word being said, Tomas. Okay. Like even in reference to it or reading it. I mean, it's after hours here. We're all adults, right? My channel is for adults. We can handle the F word. It's not going to corrupt us. But I don't like too much swearing either. It loses its power if there's too much of it. And I don't like that, And I don't like people swearing too much, or too regularly. It's not a good habit to have. So, I mean, I understand. I definitely don't want to contribute to a culture of swearing. So, it wouldn't be my speech. And there's certain swear words I just don't say, though. So maybe you do have a point. Maybe I just shouldn't say any of them. But like the F word, I'm more likely to say than other ones. So anyway, let's continue. Inside was a golden maze. Crowds sang and shouted and churned the mud underfoot. The troop wandered, part of the crowd, buoyed by the laughter and the noise. An alehouse sported 8 identical barrels as big as horse carts, and it was so busy that the taps were jammed open. Barmen dipping tankards under the flow. Serving maids walked by with steaming meat on trays, and passers-by took what they wanted. It's just a set, and not a particularly good one at that, said Nonsuch, and he was right. Up close it looked tawdry in its simplicity. The walls were wooden board, not even hand thick, covered in a rough reflective paper that tossed the torchlight in 100 directions. But he had gasped along with the rest of them when they'd first seen the lambent city, and the crowds were as wild and numerous as those at any London fair. Every golden wall was punctuated with a series of open hatches, and people queued up to see whatever was hidden inside. Shay found an unoccupied slot and poked her head through. Dim lights illuminated a figure lying in a rope circle. Something white with the body of a horse, but a man's torso and head, which stretched and yawned and talked into the gloom. She tugged at Nonsuch's arm and made him look too. He laughed. See how he moves, but the body doesn't? I can't say that I'd like to spend my evenings waist deep in a half-dead horse, but it's a living, I suppose. Man, he's being such a hater, isn't he? My darling, what? You want up here? Oh, don't dig your claws in like that. That's rude. My legs are crossed. What? You want back up here? Okay, give me a second. Let me get myself better situated so you can come up on my lap. Come on. Come on. Come on. Yeah, there we go. Oh, poor kitty. Why is she still on the computer? I'm wrapping up. We're going to get through this and then I'll be done, okay? I promise. Oh, I promise. Oh, thank you, Samuel. Giving a super chat for Nero's present. See you, you. Okay. Back into the fray, tents of soothsayers and boxers, fire breathers lighting up the sky, and living statues on every corner. A tightrope transected the main square, and 2 tumblers endlessly cartwheeled and leapt past each other overhead. They were close enough that Shay could see their minute feet adjustments and feel the beads of falling sweat. Everything was free. Children picked at the whitest meat from chicken legs and discarded the rest in the dirt, while adults poured brandy into their ale and swallowed the lot in hungry draughts. Oof, brandy into ale. You couldn't go 10 steps without a leaflet being pushed into your hand. Some were for shows, see the merman dive, or the room that rains wine. But others were political tracts, while Shay and Trussell ran wild like children, stuffing themselves with pig trotters and playing quoits. I don't know what that is. Alouette sat and read to herself. They're commoners, she said, when Shay had to rest. Remember the burnt hedges and fences that we've been seeing? That was their work. They tear down the enclosures and return the land to the commons. Through a mouthful of food, Trussell said, "So they are good people, right? They're supporting the peasantry." His cheeks were wet with fat. Alouette shook her head. Good people? Probably. Criminals, certainly. A drumbeat started up and Trussell pulled the others toward the noise. They turned a corner into another golden square where girls in milkmaid costumes toted pails of ale that they tipped into any upturned mouth. Again, hashes were cut into the walls. Shay watched each and every one of them. At first, none such explained and demystified. He showed her how the gypsy fortune-teller might have known about Trussell's errant father. He claimed that the tame lion was in reality a shaved mastiff. But after a while, the sheer weight of spectacle silenced even him. They walked and took it all in with magpie eyes. By 8 bells, he wore the same look that he had when he and Shay browsed in the Royal Exchange, hunger and scorn combined. They sat for a while the huge excuse me. They sat for a while by a huge bonfire. You think the cutouts look teenage? Oh, you mean my art here? No. I don't know, some of them are a bit silly. They'll get messed with eventually. One of them is a print, though, by an artist, one of my neighbors, actually. It's one of his drawings. Yeah. Ow, that hurts. Why are you hurting me with your claws? They sat for a while by a huge bonfire, which was Cocaine's bullseye. Overhead, a banner with the slogan, "No fences, no landlords, no rest," was buffeted by the waves of heat. Children played, running, laughing in and out of the fire's warmth. Over and over they returned to a stall holding shelves of corn dollies, all dressed in London fashions, ready to be thrown onto the pyre. It made Shay shiver. The children's destructive glee and the sizzle of lace and cotton. How do they afford it all? She asked. She was crushed by the weight of people and the heat and noise. I know the crowds are big, but it's only pennies to get in. None such had obviously been thinking the same thing. I'm sure they take a cut on the gambling, and maybe he grabbed Shay's arm. Look. The lad was still a child with a busy, haunted face and hair tied back, like the other Cockaigne employees. He talked to himself as he slipped between revelers, and as Shay watched, his hands dipped quickly, like a cat's tongue, into pockets and bags. One step a pocket, another step another pocket. Shay admired the sheer artistry. It was beautifully done. They watched the boys pass through the crowd, and then when he drew close, none such turned to face Shay. Talk to me for a moment and don't look at the boy. He put his hands on his hips so that his jacket pocket gaped open. Shay babbled and kept her eyes on none such's face. 1 second longer it would have been too late. The boy was alongside them for the briefest of moments. None such thrust his hand backwards and caught the boy at the elbow. The boy ducked and twisted, but none such spun around and grabbed his other arm too. It's not really the done thing to rob the punters, you know. None such used his stage voice loud enough to interest the people around them. It's frowned upon by the better sort, the worst sort too, really. The boy looked blandly at him and then whistled 2 short notes. Nothing. He kept his eyes on the ground as Nonsuch held him tight. Then the crowd parted and the Jagger was pushing through. He took in the scene, Nonsuch's white knuckles and the crowd's expectant faces. He turned to them. Ladies and gentlemen, he had the kind of voice that demanded silence. If you would all check your pockets, you will find that some of you have been blessed. Heads went down and then laughter rippled through the crowd. One by one, hands reached for the sky, many of them grasping gold coins. Now the Jagger laughed too. They're Spanish half-angels, liberated from a shipwreck and redistributed to you good people by my boy here. The lad gave a curt nod. See, we have riches within us that we don't yet know. London takes your pounds and spends them on palaces. We take your pennies and we give you the world. Remember that when their taxmen come. He tossed a handful of the gold coins into the crowd. Spend them how you see fit. As a cheer went up, he removed Nonsuch's hand from the boy's elbow and leant in closely. His words were meant for Nonsuch, but he looked at Shay as he spoke. Not all shows are the same, little one. Nonsuch was quieter after that. They walked dazed and drunk as the night wound down around them. The ground was a quagmire of ale and bones and trodden in pamphlets, and already the braver rats darted out of corners to eat. Oh, the rats are out. Dang, Tomas, you didn't have to say it like that. Jeez. Oh. I know, I love you too. Oh, I love you too. You like me. You like to be in my company. I'm lucky. Why am I so lucky? Got a sweet kitty. Yeah, I'm lucky. Do you feel lucky? I hope I make you feel lucky. That you got a nice human. Do you have am I okay? You must. I must be if you like me this much. Okay. Oh. Men staggered and were dragged through the mud. Girls and boys disappeared into the darker corners. Blank left them, saying he'd seen enough, and Nonsuch disappeared soon after. One moment he was there, the next he was gone. So Shay and Trestle and Alouette walked, watching performances in silence and groaning with bellyache. Shay hadn't eaten so much in years. In a muddied square, the 2 men wrestled in a raised ring. One wore gentlemanly silks, the other a farmhand's smock. The crowd booed the gentleman mercilessly and cheered every blow the yokel landed. Trestle watched for a while and then said, I thought Blank had left. A familiar tricorn hat and broad back in naval blue. He was watching some unseen show through a hatch. Shay tugged at his sleeve and said, Why are you still here? He pulled his head back. He was wide-eyed. I stopped for a moment to see this. Look. Shay and Alouette took the hatches either side of him. A tank of water, stained blue by stage lanterns, stood upon a platform. A wooden frame towered overhead, and men with slicked black hair worked on it. Shay whispered, What are we looking at? And Blank said, Wait, they're about to start it up again. The lights dimmed, and the men carried something behind the tank. It was heavy enough that their progress up the wooden ladder was slow, and Shay heard the strain in their 1, 2, 3, go! A triangle of turquoise, like a falcon's tail, was lowered into the water. It was followed by a curve of iridescent scales, the same oily blue-black as peacock's feathers. The tail beat once, and then the torso was submerged too. a broad back, human, crosshatched with scars and muscles like an acrobat's. The merman's neck was fringed with 3 slits on either side, which fluttered in the water, and finally a head of curly black hair. I know him. Shay had to pull back to watch his blank face. He was rapt with attention. The merman floated upright in the blue and blinked. Shay fancied she could see thin strings at his armpits holding him in place. But he looked so real. He beat a slow rhythm and then somersaulted with his tail caressing the glass. A fat bubble of air escaped his mouth. The men touched a torch to the surface of the water, and it erupted in flame. People gasped from every corner of the show. Alouette whispered, "The water is burning. It's Greek fire." Dee would die if he saw this. But Shay didn't care about the fire. She couldn't take her eyes off the merman. "Who is he?" she asked. Blank grabbed Shay's hand. "His name is Malik. I dived with him many times. He's from my island, but I thought he died years ago." "Is he real?" "Of course he is." Blank shook his head. "Oh, do you mean does he really have a tail and gills?" "No, of course not." The merman hung in the blue, hardly blinking, like his tail like a watch hand. "It's beautiful." Shay felt the time weigh in on her. Another bubble of air escaped his lips as he tumbled in place. She forced herself to breathe. How long can he stay in the water? 3 minutes, maybe. This is already longer than I ever managed. Shay breathed hard, willing her breath into his lungs. Her chest hurt at the idea of it. The merman twirled, a curl of smoke, and his shoulder blades came together like wings. He sank towards the bottom of the tank. Above him, the flames raged noisily. Okay, dear. Come on. Come on, dear. Come on. Come on. What are you all talking about? Sounds interesting. What it costs to live in Venice. I don't know, Tomas. I mean, crime is, I mean, heaven and hell exist beside one another. What do you want? Oh, I know, Tomas. The only people would act right. Oh, dang, I'm having trouble turning the page. God, how many more pages are there? Probably not too many. I want to wrap it up. Gosh. Yeah, this chapter is longer than. Wow. Okay. What time is it? 8:40. Well, let's push on. Shay ached all over. Let him out. It's too long. He spun so that he could be seen from every side. The flames grasped for the sky above, and then, without warning, a blanket was thrown over the top, and the scene descended back into night. There was a collective exhalation of breath. Shay realized how many hatches there were and how many people had been watching. She slumped as if she was beached. That was too much. Shay had never seen Blank ruffled before. He ran along the wooden perimeter, searching for a way through to the tank. Come on, we have to get backstage. Nonesuch was still nowhere to be seen, but Shay didn't dare leave Blank in this state. The warren of streets had no obvious exits, so the 4 of them circled the walls looking for ways through to the stages. It was Trussell who spotted a commoner pressing on a patch of bare board, which slid aside to let him through. They waited a moment and then followed. A hole in the wood, barely finger width, had a taut string hung behind it. Blank hooked his thumb around it, pulled, and the whole panel revolved open. Alouette nodded in appreciation. Oh, that's nicely made. Inside was like coming home. The plain backs of wooden scenery and the smell of sawdust and paint were familiar. Midgets and fire breathers rushed by. Stagehands and barmaids dragged their stalls behind them. Blank stopped a small boy to ask after the merman, and the boy sighed and gently took his hand, leading the four of them deeper into the camp, to a tent pitched against the black backs of the castle walls. A tent in a camp in the midst of a giant wooden castle in the middle of nowhere. The room was wide and obviously home to many performers. It smelled of camphor and damp. The merman laid starfish on a tiny wooden cot with his tail laying still beside him. It curled like a comma on the table as a girl rubbed linseed oil into the scales. It had the same exact sheen as peacock feathers, but Blank only had eyes for the merman. He crouched alongside him so that their faces were inches from each other, and for a moment Shay thought that all he had come to do was watch that face, childlike with exhaustion. But then he placed a hand on Malik's shoulder and whispered, "Revel." The word shook him awake instantly. He sat up, eyes wide, breathing like he'd just finished a race. He and Blank embraced for a long time, not speaking, leaning into each other like they might fall. Blank sat across the tent from him, watching in wonder. The merman, whole and talking, far more of a miracle than his act had been. His voice was slow, like Blank's, picking out words like dry spaces on the marsh. I was diving in Scotland in a lake, or is it a loch? It was reputedly the hiding place for some treasure stashed in some cave 10 yards underwater. We wore suits of whale skin and blubber under ice as thick as your arm. It was hard work, but the pay was good. But one morning I arrived at the berth and the foreman had disappeared with all the equipment and all the money. 3 years I walked south, begging on the way. Sometimes in the northern villages they pay a penny to touch my hair. He ran his fingers through tight curls. I came across cocaine at Carlisle. They were rebels then, purely political folk. He shuddered and water dripped down his torso. They toured from town to town, fomenting rebellion, anti the Queen, anti the Lords, anti the Church. Not many of them. The Jagger had a few others, serious men, dour men. They asked me to join them, but I told them there were already enough reasons for people to hate me. Blank nodded at that. He turned the tail over and stroked the oil against the grain. Scales rose in little rainbow peaks. He came back 6 months later, same stool, same brandy, and he told me, I've given up telling people about a better world. I'm going to show them instead. Malik looked around the tent. It was small but comfortable. When I got here, the tank was already made and the costume was at the tailor's. Cocaine gets what cocaine wants. Every penny we make is shared equally. The privy builders make the same as the Jagger. There's like I don't know, diggers. Y'all know about the diggers? Well, good for him. He's done very well with that lineage, Point Fire. And are your people completely unsullied without any blemishes along the way? It's so good for you. The Diggers, they were a band of people who, they were like proto-communists. I don't know. They were rebelling against the basically privatization of the common lands in England. So, people, the peasantry had lived on these lands for years and they were held in common by the community, but the land started to be privatized and bought up, and people, had to then start to, it just kind of created more of a strong class system, but there were people who resisted it. And sometimes on religious grounds, they had rebel songs and they had uprisings. So it sounds like this is some sort of like similar people. Yeah. Are you referring to your ancestors' Point Fire? Yeah, Protestant rebels. Maybe I could play a Chumbawamba song. Play some more copyrighted material on the chat. If we feel up to it at the end, I'll play a song. Okay. And so, yeah, Malik. What do you want to bet Malik's a black guy? We've got diversity in this book. Isn't that exciting? He had tight curls of hair. We haven't talked about the color of his skin, though, but I'm guessing he's some kind of not exactly European. Okay. I mean, Malik, it could be like an Arab type person. I'm racially investigating the characters. I mean, okay. She hadn't spoken until now, but what is it? It's Cockaigne, the land of milk and honey. But is it a show or a rebellion? Are the acts here to recruit commoners, or are the commoners here to protect the show? Malik considered it. I'm not sure even they know that anymore. Even if they ever did, it's more like a wildfire than anything man-made. It goes its own way. From outside came noises that Shay knew well, rumble of scenery and jangle of coins, and everywhere the voices of working men, quarrelsome and sarcastic. The city was being packed down, and they were still miles from home. Reluctantly, she gestured to Blank that it was time to go. Stay. They were already halfway out the door. Cockaigne was now just wooden panels on the back of horse carts. Malik was up on his feet, tense as a boxer. All of you, stay. They waited in the doorway. Blank, you could work with me. I can only do 3 shows a night. Together we could do 6. And there are always parts for actors. He gestured to Trestle. We know of the Blackfriars boys here. Our paths almost crossed plenty of times. You and none such would have much to do. He bowed to Alouette. And we have money for effects. Greek fire, too. Anyway, the Jagger would take every one of your troupe just to get the Sparrow. The way they turned to face her, the 3 of them, made her heart sink. Shay blanched. He knows my act? Of course, word gets around, not as quickly as in the city, but fast enough. The Jagger speaks of you often. He saw you in Bellbrook. Bellbrook, a half-forgotten hamlet, not even on the map. They put up an impromptu show on a patch of wet grass, and she tranced deep, waking up with feet stained black from ink-capped mushrooms. We share the money. No one has top billing. We're all peasants. We're all kings. We eat well, drink well. I know, Samuel, they're getting to me. They're making me all conscious about it all the time. No, I think I would have made a joke about it. Yes, Tomas is very genteel. Yes. Really, I didn't know. Is that true about Trudeau? I hadn't heard about that. Why are you just saying that out of nowhere? But oh my, I hadn't heard that. Terri also drinks well. Indeed, I do. I've got my raspberry rose poppy prebiotic soda right here. Raspberry and rose flavor. I mean, imagine that. Doesn't that just sound yummy? So good. Okay. Leftover food covered the table in front of them, chicken legs with plenty of meat left on them, grapes fat as eggs. But Alouette turned back to leave. We're only in the country temporarily until London is safe again. Malik nodded. Then why not make it temporary here? You see our crowds. We're already our own masters. Alouette wouldn't step back into the tent. Where are you going to be tomorrow? No idea. We'll ride for the night, sleep for the morning, play in the evening. Alouette threw the words over her shoulder. You're not kings, you're livestock. They found none such sitting in the shadows of the wreckage of the entrance. His foot tapped as if there was music playing. Where did you go? I've been exploring. I take it all back. This place is extraordinary. Stragglers stumbled down the hill in darkness. The torches had burned down and the path hung with smoke. Did you see the Greek fire? Alouette had the same breathlessness that stage girls did when none such stopped to talk. I watched them set a tank of water ablaze. None such grinned. Oh, I did better than see it. He pulled a quiver of arrows out at the shadows. They had an odd gritty texture near the tip, and they smelt somehow of March gas. You didn't. How? Asked Alouette. He touched the side of his nose. Wait, watch. He noticed an arrow and pulled back the bowstring. Then he dipped the arrowhead into a torch's flame. He waited until it sparked and then fired a long arc into the air. It rose, fizzing and spitting and spiraling, and then burst into a bright white flower that dripped light as it fell. Alouette whispered, "Oh, yes." As it landed, it continued to burn, even as it spat on the wet ground. She grunted with satisfaction. Don't waste another one, save them. If I can work out how they're made, then Dee will sweat money for us. She went to take them from him, but he wagged a finger. Get your own. Somebody driving rather. He's not hungry. He's not hungry, he's jealous. He ate not long ago. The horses stepped gingerly into the darkness. Shay could only see none such as outline ahead of her, but his voice sparkled with pleasure. That's what we could have been doing all this time. His fingers were black with soot, and he smelled of destruction. They're reshaping the whole countryside. Did you see the children? I've never seen glee like that at one of our shows. He couldn't stay still. Time and again he dug his spurs into his horse's side as he made a point, and each time he leapt on ahead. He swiped at moths with his sword. Alouette was just as excited as he was. She was one pace behind Shay. Greek fire, she said. Liquid flames. Do you know what it means? Hi, Gregatron. Shay didn't. Shay had never heard her lost for words before. It's some fabled mixture that the Byzantines used. They could fire jets of fire from hoses on their boats. They could bottle it in grenades. Arrows dipped in the mixture would burn for hours. She and Nunsuch shook their heads in unison. Those are some clever, clever yokels. Riding at night always made Shay feel guilty, like she'd missed curfew, and the watch might stop here at any moment. They rode slowly through invisible lanes, in and out of coppices, warm air and the faintest of moonlight. You know what, y'all? I'm gonna have to take a break. Okay? I'm gonna take a quick break and we'll return because this is a lot to get through, and I want to finish the chapter. So I'll be back shortly. I don't appreciate you speculating in the chat. Ugh, especially golden rule. I mean, goodness. Ugh. I'm back. I needed to, refresh myself. We'll just say that. Okay, so yeah, I have a few more pages to get through. So let's continue. Set fire to the Thames and then race boats through the flames, string high wires from St. Paul's, and stage sword fights in the sky. The ghost theater written in lights across the clouds. They trotted down an avenue of trees that leant tenderly towards one another. It had the feel of the arched ceiling at St. Paul's. Shay smelled moonflower and from somewhere the scent of tobacco. Nunsuch swiped at moths with his sword. Take that, you feathery bastard. For the 100th time, he slowed to let them catch up. Imagine that show in London. Imagine the fear. We've been wasting our time. He took an arrow from his quiver and notched it to his bow. F word. Tomas has made me self-conscious about saying the F word, so I will say F word. He touched the wick to his torch and it caught instantly. Alouette barely had enough time to say, "For God's sake, Nunsuch, don't spook the horses," before the rocket erupted in a shower of brilliant white and shot backwards in a crazy spiral. Light like it was day, and for the briefest moment, framed in black in front of them, 3 men on horseback with swords drawn. Blank reacted first. Don't make a sound, just turn around, quietly. Trussell had been looking the other way. Wait, what? Why? Tell you later, do as I say, quickly. Shay wheeled her horse around. Her eyes still hadn't adjusted from the flare, so she judged the distance by sound. The soft clop of hooves and no talking. They made it 10 yards before Nunsuch reached out and laid an arm across her chest. Wait, I hear more men this way. They stood for a moment, and the oblivious horses started to nibble at the grass. Backstage voices. Where now? Off the path? It's wild back there. If we go that way, then a horse might break a leg. There was noise, close, a scratch of flint in the sudden torchlight. A face was mere inches from hers. The man was low-browed with tied-back hair, and he said, "Worse still, you might break your neck." She reared back, and torches lit all around her. 4 men with lanterns and swords, ponytails and a contented air. The furthest forward spoke. "We would like a word with the sparrow here." His horse pawed at the ground, and Shay sensed, rather than saw, the other men behind her. "Go ahead," she said. "In private, if you don't mind." I pronounced Thames correctly. I know about my rivers. At least the Thames. The Thames, what else would I call it? People often pronounce the river in my city incorrectly. It was funny when I first moved here, one of my friends who moved here before me, she was shocked that I knew how to say the river's name correctly. But I got it from Oregon Trail. I remember playing Oregon Trail on my home computer in the 90s, and they talked about crossing into the Willamette Valley. So when I saw the Willamette River, I just, knew how to say it. Although I think I probably would have guessed Willamette, if I'd just been reading it. But anyway. Alouette pulled her horse in front of Shay's. "She's going nowhere with you. Come to the show tomorrow. Buy a fucking ticket." 4 here and 3 on the road, but 5 ghost theater players. Not too unequal a fight by numbers, but the men had an ease about them that Shay associated with killers. She kept her voice neutral. "Alouette is right. Come to the show tomorrow, and of course you don't need tickets. We'll be happy to see you." The men seemed content with the silence. The led horse bent to nibble at a tuft of grass, and the man pulled him upright again. It wasn't really a request, I'm afraid. Think of it as a requisition. Nonsuch slid his horse alongside Alouette's and said, "A requisition. This is a press gang?" He smirked. "Worse, you might call it a kind of human enclosure." He was pleased with the jibe, but the man seemed unconcerned. "Whatever you choose to call it, she's necessary to us. She has a gift, and the gifts must be shared." Nonsuch seemed happy that they were trading words rather than blows. "Gifts are given, not taken." He was relaxed in his saddle, but his voice was urgent. The men laughed and put out their hands. "Give, then." Nonsuch pressed his heels into the horse's flank. "Form a line," he whispered, and they moved into a broken rank. Nonsuch reached out his hands both ways. Shay took his left. It was cool and dry. "We're coming through. If you stop us, then it'll be your choice." Shay squeezed her thighs, and her horse inched forward. She clung hard to Nonsuch's hands. His horse lurched and then stopped. Shay saw his heels pucker into the flesh on the animal's flank. Reluctantly, it stepped closer to the men, and the others followed, mere inches at a time. When they were close enough that they could hear the men's breaths, Nonsuch's horse threw its head up and back. It reared, but Nonsuch calmed it. "Come on now, girl. Another small step." Shay urged hers on too. She was near enough to smell tobacco on the men's breath. They were moving through. Metal on metal 3 times. Swick, swick, swick. Knife blades caught in the moonlight. Trussell cried out as his horse reared and then turned and bolted back the way they'd come. He was gone in moments. "There's a smart boy. You do well to follow him." Shay pressed her horse on, and it snorted and pawed at the ground. Flecks of spittle formed on the back of its mouth. It was wary of squeezing through the gap between the commoners' horses. But Shay dug her heels in 2 more paces, nearly level with the men, close enough to reach over and pluck the hat from the nearest. Another step, saddles brushing one another, and the horses stopped again. Nonsuch was eye to eye with their leader. He said, "Will the Jagger not mind if you bring him a dead sparrow, then?" The man nodded. "Aye, he would, but I'm not sure that will be necessary." Shay had no idea what he meant until he pushed his blade deep into Nonsuch's belly. With all the ceremony of handing over a message. For a moment they stared at each other, and then he retracted the blade. Nonsuch looked down at his white shirt, and there was just enough moonlight to see it bloom black all the way to the tails. No one moved, and then Nonsuch slid, almost gracefully, from his horse. It was quiet enough that Shay heard his blood pump and drip. The air even smelled of it, iron and shit. Oh, I hate that word. And then Shay felt arms around her. She was hauled across the shoulder. Horses began to trot as she was watching Alouette and Blank dwindle in the moonlight, watching them hunched over the pile of rags that was Nonsuch, watching them lay down and press on his wound. And then the scene became miniature, and the horses started to gallop, and she could hear nothing but the hooves and the blood in her ears until they rounded a wooded corner, and then suddenly everything she knew was gone. Isn't that awful? They've kidnapped her. And they stabbed Nonsuch in the belly, our sweet Nonsuch, the romantic character of Nonsuch, son of a sin eater. Oh, I'm heartbroken. And I'm going to end there tonight with this book. Wow. I'm devastated. Our poor Nonsuch. I Golden Rule TV says I really don't need makeup. Oh, it's not about need, is it? Women don't wear makeup because they need to. It's a luxury. So there. How about that? Okay, let's see. I wanted to pull up one of those songs, the Diggers songs. Let's see what I can find. No, that's not it. That'd be a more exciting version. I'm not ticked. War paint, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I just think of it as femininity and it's fun. Girly things, you know? Adornment, beauty. It's part of being a woman. You know, some women are less into that than others. I'm into it, you know? I mean, the more pretty a woman is, why wouldn't she adorn herself? Okay, so I'm going to share this. How is this looking? Why does it default that way? Put myself in the corner here. We'll listen to this song.
In 1649, to St. George's Hill, a ragged band they call the Diggers came to show the people's will. They defied the landlords, they defied the laws. They were the dispossessed, reclaiming what was theirs. We come in peace, they said, to dig and sow. We come to work the land in common and to make the waste ground grow. The earth divided, we will make whole, so it can be a common treasury for all. The sin of property we do disdain. No one has any right to buy or sell the earth for private gain. By theft and murder they took the land. Now everywhere the wars spring up at their command. They make the laws to chain us well. The clergy dazzle us with heaven, or they damn us into hell. We will not worship the God they serve, the God of greed who feeds the rich whilst people starve. We work, we eat together, we take up swords. We will not bow to the masters or pay rent to the lords. We are free people, though we are poor. You diggers all stand up for glory, stand up now.
Wasn't that nice? So what did we learn about the diggers? They're not Irish, they're English, Maina. The diggers were English peasants, although this happened all over Europe, with the development of, I mean, it's part of how the economy changed in the advent of private property in the 17th century. So it's interesting that he's weaving those themes into this book as well. I mean, I don't know much of the history during Elizabethan times. I didn't know she had troubles with the diggers, but it makes sense. Yes, they don't like the landlords. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, previous to that, the land was held in common. People like Nonsuch in the play that he was describing, he and his folks went out to forage. That was something that common people could do. And then once the land got all bought up, the common land that had been held, for centuries, it really did change the economy. So, people couldn't be peasants anymore. They couldn't maintain their lifestyle. A lot of them, got taken into the cities and became labor workers after that, or they started immigrating to America. I mean, that's how a lot of white people came from Europe. They got kicked off their common lands. And so, they came here to have, a new place to live because they couldn't maintain their lifestyles. And there wasn't work there, that they could, do to make a living. Oh my goodness. Did you think Queen Mary the First was a good queen, Stacey? Do you think she was good for England? Or I think she kind of ruined it for Catholics forever in England. Exactly. The land has never been held in common. Whatever. There's records of these things. What do you mean there's never been held in common? Yeah, it was. There were common lands that peasants lived in and foraged on. They could hunt there, they could forage, they could work it. And it was held by the community. And the peasants, they only sold their labor generally to a lord in the lands. Even there, they would be selling their labor on his lands and doing work for him, but they still had common lands that were theirs. But anyway, I mean, maybe it's all made up. Maybe it's all made up and you know better, But I don't know what the diggers were so concerned about then if it was nothing. No king or queen is good. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, isn't it? I don't think it's an inherently corrupt concept. I don't agree at all. How is that inherently corrupt? Survival of the fittest. I'm brain damaged by commies. Okay. I don't know. I don't know how that's even brain damage. There's records of these things. There's records of land being privatized. But anyway. Okay. Well, if you're the best at something, Golden Rule TV, you're going to come out on top, aren't you? I mean, it's survival of the fittest, and sometimes the fittingest people are the most cunning. And I don't know. I mean, sometimes people are just put in positions. I don't think of it as inherently corrupt. God can use anyone. Stealing is an honest way, it's evil. Okay, well then you get off of this land too, since they say that this land that you're living on is stolen. Aren't we on stolen land? Isn't all land stolen at some point? Land belongs to those who are on it, who work it, who run it. I mean, come on, like what? There's never, I mean, like maybe I'm like tripping on like or sparking off of what Maina said, but like there's never been a land that, you know, wasn't stolen from somebody at some point. Some people buy it. Okay, but you know, where are they buying it from? Come on, that's not how it's been done throughout most of history. So I don't know. And you can look at any land and say it's been stolen at some point. So I don't know. I mean, I'm over that because people say that about the USA all the time. It's stolen land. It's like, oh well, you know, we're not going back. The USA done been here. It is what it is. No, but I mean, you know, we've done away with that system, but we have an equally corrupt system. Psh, only the victors write the history books. Yeah, duh. But that's not even true. There's plenty of extra history you can dig into and research yourself. And also, I mean, so what? You know, it's a silly thing. They stole the land. Man, everybody stole some land somewhere. What are you talking about? Land belongs to those who can take it and keep it. It is what it is. Well, anyway, this was a fun one. I'm a little bit upset about what's happened in the story, but it's nice to see it progressing, and we are tiptoeing towards the end. There's plenty of Tartaria stuff all over the internet. Make sure to buy some land, folks. Why buy it when you could just steal it, Tomas? Unless you're referring to something else. What is LAN? Oh no, but why did it have to be my dear sweet Nunsuch's blood and guts? My dear sweet Nunsuch, our romantic figure, the troubled actor boy who won the heart of our beloved bird girl Shay. Land is how JLP says land. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I see. Well, thank you all for being here. It's been fun tonight. I hope you enjoyed this time. I enjoyed it. Thanks for, you know, chatting and contributing and just making it lively. Well, anyway, I'll see you next time. Thanks for being here, y'all. Good night. Goose night. Good one.